Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Offensive, where I'm going to go into the Wisconsin Badgers and the Luke Fickell era and what we do moving forward, because I think we all know after yesterday that Luke Fickell is done at Wisconsin. Now, it's up for conjecture whether he gets fired right away, sometime during the season or after the season, but his time is over. It's been coming. We've all been calling for it, obviously, despite Barry Alvarez telling us to basically shut up and that we're spoiled. Like, too bad. Fickell's terrible. He proved it yet again. This team does not play for him. That's the problem. The biggest problem is this team goes out there and they've got no heart whatsoever. And that's 100% a reflection of Coach Fickell. So rock bottom. Seriously, this is probably the lowest the Badgers team has been as far as a football standpoint in maybe 50 or 60 years. Because yes, we were bad in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Obviously, that was before my time, but they knew they were bad. They didn't recruit well. Football wasn't a big deal. Like, being bad was expected. Luke Fickell was expected to make the Badgers compete, to have them competing potentially for a Big Ten championship. Now, maybe that was, too high of an expectation, but this guy had made the college football playoff before. So when he was hired and the money that he was paid when he was hired, that expectation was the Badgers should be in the thick of it and maybe potentially get in the college football playoffs. But let's just look at this right here. The worst Iowa loss since there was a 1-8 in the year. Do you understand that? That is beyond bad. That is beyond terrible. 37-0 at home is an embarrassment for this Badgers team. Maybe in the 60s or 70s or 80s when they were bad, it wouldn't have been such an embarrassment because, again, they didn't have expectations of being a good football team. They had expectations of being a good football team under Luke Fickell, and Wisconsin beat us and lost 37-0 at home to Iowa. And the Hawkeyes have now outscored the Badgers 94-16 in those three matchups under Luke Fickell. Unbelievable. So we all know he's gone, but let's look a little deeper into the Luke Fickell era, right? Let's look a little deeper. So I'm going to add this to the stage. So this is his record against Big Ten opponents. You can see 1-0 against Illinois, the one game he played against them, 0-1 against Indiana, 0-3 against these Hawkeyes, not a single win against one of our biggest rivals, right? Not a single win and just dominated. 0-1 against the Terrapins, the Wolverines, and then Purdue and Rutgers, probably the two worst teams in the Big Ten, right? Without question. I know Rutgers is trying. They've got some talent. They go here. They go up and down a little bit, but let's be clear. Like, Rutgers and Purdue are probably the two worst programs in the Big Ten, without question. So we're a little bit better than them. We have beat them. Luke Fickell is 4-0 against the two worst programs. And otherwise, that's it. He has a winning record against Illinois because he played them once, a winning record against Purdue, a winning record against Rutgers, and then he's either 1-1 against Northwestern Nebraska and Minnesota, or 0-1 or 0-3 like he is against the Gophers. And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. This 0-3 against Iowa is just the beginning of some offers. So I actually want you guys to take a look now at the upcoming schedule for the Wisconsin Badgers. So let's take a look at that. So we know we just lost to Iowa, so we're 2-4 right now, right? Ohio State and Oregon are going to boat race the Badgers. So the Badgers are then going to be 2-6. I mean, even if they were a good team, those were going to be tough games anyway. Ohio State's number one in the country. They could play their backups and beat us by 45, I believe. And then at Oregon, there's just, you wouldn't expect to win that game, even if the Badgers were a top 10 team, let alone, outside the top 100, which is where they are right now. And then Washington at home, that seems like it could have been a win at the beginning of the year. I don't think they can win that game. At Indiana, definitely a loss. Illinois at home. Illinois is pretty good this year. That's definitely a loss. And then at Minnesota, I don't think they win another football game. Maybe they pull one of these out, right? Maybe they pull one of these out. But there's a good chance the Badgers do not win another football game for the rest of the year and finish with 2 wins, which we could go into the history of the Badgers, but that's going to be one of their worst seasons in 50 years. So, yeah, that's the state of the Wisconsin Badgers, thanks to Luke Fickell. And it's not even the losses. It's not even the record at 2-4. Like, okay, maybe you had a mistake against Maryland, but Maryland actually beat you up. Maryland took that game over with a freshman quarterback and owned you at home, right? Michigan, the first half looked okay. Second half was terrible. Another constant of the Fickell era is even if the game is close or semi, competitive in the first half, the Badgers get absolutely dominated in the second half of games against good teams, which is when you are a bad coach. That's what happens, right? And then Iowa obviously stomped us again. Ohio State should win by 40 points. Oregon probably around a 40-point win. Washington at home, I'd imagine they'd win by about 20 against us. Indiana at Indiana, probably a 20 to 30-point win. Illinois at home, maybe we keep that close. I could see it being like a 15-point loss, maybe a 17-point loss. And then at Minnesota, same thing, probably 17 to 20-point loss. So not only do I think we're going to lose every single game the rest of the year, I don't know if the Badgers will be competitive in any of these games the rest of the year because this team has no desire to play for Luke Fickell, and it was apparent yesterday. Here's an image shared by Chief from our channel who was at the game yesterday with some friends. The game isn't over. This is the fourth quarter. Earlier in the fourth quarter, all the students are gone. Like, it's past the point of anger and it's on to the point of apathy. Like, being angry about how bad the Badgers are under Fickell is not going to make a difference. We're apathetic. Everyone is apathetic now. That's how low he has sunk this program. So I know Ohio State's not a rival, but man, let's not hire any, they are a rival in the sense of the Big Ten, but like they are obviously an echelon above us. And that gap has grown dramatically thanks to this former Ohio State guy who basically came in and torpedoed our program. He absolutely ruined it. And the crazy thing about it is the recruiting hasn't been terrible. Let's look at the recruiting. So the first year he comes in, he's only got 15 commits, right? New coach. There's not a ton of turnover. The transfer portal wasn't necessarily super crazy that year. So 15 commits, they're ranked about 50th in the nation overall for recruiting. So not terrible, not great, but that's mostly because there's only 15 commits. So that drops you. They got 3 4-star recruits, 12 3-star recruits, which is very Wisconsin Badgery type, like recruiting season. But I think just the number being low at 15 is what actually keeps them around 59. But then you go to the next 2 years, 23rd, 11 4-star recruits, 11 3-star recruits, 23rd overall, 27th last year, 7 4-star recruits, 16 3-star recruits. So the recruiting's been good. When you recruit around the top 25, right, which the Badgers traditionally haven't. They've had a couple seasons where they've been around there, or a couple, recruiting classes that have been around the top 25, but they're usually 30 to 40 somewhere. And those years that they were really good, winning 9-10 games, that's kind of where they sat, was usually like low 30s, sometimes 40, sometimes around there, because they get a lot of local 3-star recruits, almost never get 5 stars, once in a while. And then, a handful of 4 stars. That's pretty standard Wisconsin recruiting. So not only has it been pretty standard, it's actually been better than most Wisconsin recruiting classes. So you ask yourself, okay, we've got all these good recruiting classes back-to-back years. Fickell's got his guys at this point. Because his first year when they had a winning record, right, they're like, oh, he's 7-6 because, he doesn't have his guys. Okay, so, they bring in a bunch of transfers. He gets some more of his guys 2024, and they get worse. And now in 2025, it's mostly his guys, right? Mostly his guys at this point, not all, but mostly 2-4 and 129th in the nation in offense. I didn't even remember there being 129 teams in Division I NCAA. I mean, I got this off ChatGPT and Wikipedia, so maybe it's a little bit off, but we know it's bad. We've watched it. We know it's bad. So if 129 teams qualify, the Badgers might be the worst, right? And look at every single year, 7th on offense, 99th, 129th. Defense, kind of consistent, to be fair, 39th, 41st, now 34. That's going to get worse, though, because we're going to go play Ohio State and Oregon and, go to Indiana. So that's going to drop. That's going to get worse. So that's going to follow the trend of getting worse, 39th to 41st. And my guess would be they'd finish somewhere in the 50s to 60s at the end of the year. And then rushing offense, which is the Badgers' identity and has been for near on 30 years, right? And we all wanted a better passing game. We all wanted the offense to be more updated and less ancient. Like, we get it. We all called for that. But what we didn't call for is to be one of the worst rushing teams in the country. 82nd his first year, 98th last year in rushing offense, and 117th in rushing offense this year. This is a huge problem. Like you want to change the offense so that you can pass. Does that mean you completely abandon the run? This has been the biggest difference, I think, in the Wisconsin Badgers under Fickell, is that the inability to run the football isn't just bad, it's one of the worst in the country. And he changed that overnight, or should I say, ruined that overnight. And it's not going to get any better. So we can go into more stats and we can get into more information, but let's just we know he's done. He's done. So let's talk about the contract buyout. What's the next stage? Because he's not going to go into next season. I think at this point, unless somehow some miracle happens and they win Ohio State or they win at Oregon or they win 2 or 3 games, which, guys, if you watch this Badgers team, you know they're toast. You know they're done. And to be fair, I think they're going to be semi-competitive at least to start some of these games, because a lot of these kids need to show up so they can get their transfer papers in and go somewhere else next year, if Fickell's still around, which I really, really doubt. But, I really think that the contract buyout's coming soon. And it's pretty significant. In fact, it would be the second highest contract buyout in the history of NCAA football, right behind Texas A&M firing Jimbo Fisher. So it's a lot of money, right? So his contract calls for him to be owed 80% of what's remaining on his initial deal, and that would put his season-ending buyout figure at approximately $25 million. Now, they extended him through 2031, I believe, last year, but they didn't actually, they formatted it in a way so that it doesn't actually make his buyout higher. And then the silver lining is, as you can see in the bottom, instead of owing a massive sum up front, they'll pay the buyout in monthly installments, making it easier to manage. So that is pretty smart. I feel like maybe somewhere they knew this might be coming after watching how the team doesn't play for him and how he's basically not a good coach, and kind of found a way to make it so that they didn't have to pay this out all in one huge sum. And this is going to happen. And here's something else that I've been thinking about too after yesterday. So Luke Fickell's out there apologizing to the Wisconsin fans after he's done what seems like irrevocable damage to the Wisconsin Badgers program. But the thing to consider here as well is that Luke Fickell has done damage to his coaching future for a long time. And it's not because of his record. It's because of the way his team performs and how his players play. I mean, what college would want to bring this guy in at this point after watching how his players play for him? Nobody wants to be on the field for this guy. There's no heart, there's no drive, there's no effort, there's no belief. So Luke Fickell has done way more damage to his coaching career than he has done to the Badgers program. So it is going to take us years probably to dig out of this hole, but I don't know if Luke Fickell will ever get a Power 5 coaching job again. Because I do believe he'll get a coaching job either as a defensive coordinator or maybe at like a smaller school or something like that. But I think any Power 5 program that considers hiring Luke Fickell would probably have to be on some sort of drugs to justify that decision. If you watch any Badgers game, I don't see how any program could believe that hiring this guy is the right move, right? Unless they're like a 1-10 team or something like that. Or again, a smaller program that needs because he's still got a big name. So they need the panache of his big name. But he has done so much damage to his future as a coach that it might be in his best interest to stop it now. Because if he goes and wins 2 games this year, right, and finishes 2-10, which is very likely, it's going to do even more damage to his potential as a coach, because we know they aren't winning the next 2 games. We know they aren't. And there's a good chance they don't win any games the rest of the year. So it might be in Fickell's interest to say, hey, you know what? Let's come to an arrangement. Give me $15 million and I'll walk out right now. Or give me $17 million. I'll walk out right now. And you guys, can keep the other $8 million, right? And we can still do it in installments, because this buyout is happening. If Luke Fickell is the coach next year, the Badgers will not have anyone in the stands. I mean, you saw what it was like in the fourth quarter. People are so apathetic, they're going to stop showing up to games now because it's an embarrassment. The Wisconsin Badgers are right now, as a football team, an embarrassment. And this is not on the players, right? This is 100% on the coach. And there is so much that needs to be done. And there is so much wrong with this football team. And there's literally nothing right. There is nothing this Badgers team does well. They did, until last week, seemed like they were good against the run. Well, Iowa went ahead and took 200 yards on the ground from them. So there is nothing that this team can hold their hat on. And Luke Fickell might want to consider his future, because, $25 million is a lot. Why would you want to walk away from that? Well, if you never get a coaching contract again as a head coach, maybe it's in your best interest to walk away before you go 2-10, right? Maybe it's in your best interest to walk away now, because the Badgers aren't going to win a game probably the rest of the year, no matter who is coaching. So maybe there's a conversation that could be happened between Luke Fickell and McIntosh, and they figure out something amicable to get him out of this contract early, because I don't believe the Badgers will fire him until the end of the year, because there is no point to bring in an interim or anybody else to go 2-10, because whoever they bring in, I feel like this team doesn't have a shot, just the way they're playing. I mean, maybe somebody can come in and give him a shot in the arm, but I just don't see how this team can change overnight. So, yeah, let's go into the next one. So this is where I feel like I would like to talk a little bit about some of the possible replacements. Okay. Now, there's a lot of thought out there that maybe Mike McCarthy is a candidate. Please, God, no. Like, Mike McCarthy's older. Yes, he'd probably fix the offense to the point, but Mike McCarthy has proven that, like, he's got some issues when it comes to defense, and he's got some issues when it comes to running the ball, right? And he just doesn't fit the Wisconsin Badgers program. He just doesn't fit what we need to reestablish the identity of the Wisconsin Badgers. Yes, he's a household name. Yes, he would probably bring in some recruits. But after watching what Belichick is doing in North Carolina, and yes, I know that's a totally different animal, but can we not just bring these toasted NFL coaches into college football? There are plenty of good coaches out there. And if you have to buy out Fickell's contract anyway and figure out what your finances are, bringing in a name like McCarthy and overpaying him to be mediocre is not a good plan. Okay. And I also left Jim Leonhard off this because the Denver Broncos have him as, a defensive assistant right now. Their defense is amazing. He's looking really good. I don't know if he's ready to come back to the Badgers. I think he's still a little upset that he didn't get the job. We don't know that. He's never necessarily said that, but I don't know if Jim Leonhard is actually a candidate. I would love Jim Leonhard back, but everybody knows Jim Leonhard is a possible candidate. I just don't think he's a likely one, at least right now. So these are the four guys that I'm looking at that I would actually like. So let me give you a little bit of information. Everyone knows Lance Leopold, right? He's a Wisconsin guy. He coached at Whitewater for a while, and now he's with Kansas. And yes, he has a losing record, but Kansas, not historically great football program. I think a lot of what he does fits, and he feels like a Wisconsin guy. This is the thing about Fickell too that people have said, and I've heard it say multiple times. He just doesn't feel right. He doesn't feel like a Wisconsin guy, and so I think maybe some of that to help heal the wounds. A guy like Lance Leopold that is known in Wisconsin maybe would be a good move, even if it's not long-term, even if it is for a 4 or 5 year term, to just kind of Band-Aid it up until they can fix the program and make them an acceptable program again, is one way that they could go about it. Now, another guy that is just really shooting up the boards as far as like potential head coaching candidates is Fran Brown over at Syracuse, who's done an unbelievable job turning around a Syracuse program that was not very good. And we're in the state now. Let's be honest. The Badgers are in the state now where they need like a medical resuscitation. They are so bad. They need someone to completely change the culture again. Fran Brown seems to have done that in Syracuse, but he's so highly touted at this point that I don't even know if he'd consider the Badgers program. I think he might be able to get a better job than that. And that's crazy to say because he's a Syracuse head coach, but this is where the Badgers program is at, guys. We might not be able to get the coach that we want, like we got Fickell last time, because the program is now in dire straits. Another guy to think about is Ryan Silverfield over in Memphis, who's done an excellent job with a program that historically has not had a lot of money for football or been able to recruit very well. A 35-18 record over there. A lot of his offense is based off of running and different shifts and running attacks and things like that. So I actually really like watching Memphis's offense. I think they have a very interesting one. And that's kind of like maybe this guy will work and he might be a little bit cheaper than bringing in Lance or maybe Fran Brown, right? If we are trying to save money based on this buyout, who knows? And then another guy that's thrown around, and again, he has a losing record at New Mexico, but Jason Eck just is kind of like a hard-nosed, feels like a Wisconsin guy. Yes, he has a losing record, but again, this is New Mexico. It's not a great school, but he kind of fits the Badgers' MO of like a coach that I think could come in and just get the guys to play. Get the guys to play hard and tough. Now, maybe that's not a long-term solution, but if we do sign a coach, I have a feeling, because the Badgers are going to be paying off Fickell in these installments, that they're not going to go for a huge, expensive coach again. I feel like that those waters were tested, and it was so bad. Like Luke Luke Fickell, for what he has been paid, might be one of the worst coaches in the history of college football, right? Based on his record performance and how much he is actually getting paid, which was an extremely high contract. This might be one of the worst coaching deals for a school in the history of college football. That is how bad it is. He took the Badgers program that was kind of slowly eking down to a 500 program, and he was supposed to come in and fix it. And he's basically turned them into a 3-win program. Let's be honest. They are that bad. So it's time to sound the alarms and get somebody else. And whether it happens right now or whether it happens at the end of the season, I don't know if it matters that much, because I don't think anyone on this coaching staff deserves to be an interim coach either. I don't think anybody on this coaching staff is going to step in and change anything. This isn't like the Paul Chryst situation where we had Leonard and everybody knew Leonard had the potential to be a head coach in college football. He had one of the best defensive records as a defensive coordinator in the nation year after year after year. So he was an easy candidate to take over for Chryst. There is no candidate right now to take over for Fickell because all of that coaching staff is terrible, it looks like. None of that coaching staff has my trust. So firing Fickell now just to bring somebody else in to lose a bunch more games, I don't know if that's the solution. I'd almost rather Fickell play out at least a couple more games, get blown out, and just maybe creep toward the place where he does agree on an amicable buyout so that his career isn't ruined forever, because it's close. His career is close to being ruined forever. He has been so bad as a head coach and so overpaid as a head coach and basically put this program in dire straits and ruined it likely for the next few years after taking over a program that had gone to bowl games for 25 years in a row, 27 years in a row, I believe it was. He has completely shredded it and turned this football team into an apathetic, disgusting program to watch. And I don't blame any Wisconsin fans for not buying merch. I don't blame any of the students for leaving early. I don't blame anybody for shouting fire Fickell. And I do not agree with anything Barry Alvarez said. You want to say we're spoiled? Fine. You know what? 25 plus years of winning, call us spoiled. Do you know what other programs do that are high echelon, that are high level when this coach is this bad? They get rid of them and they figure it out because your boosters are going to go away. I'm not buying Wisconsin merch as long as he's the head coach. And I know everyone else I know feels the same way. That's a Badger alumni or a Badger fan. So yeah, $25 million is a lot of money, but the Badgers program is going to lose so much more money if they keep him on long term. I think they know that. I think we've all understood that it's done. I think this Iowa game was, if there was any question that Luke Fickell would be back next year, I think this Iowa game pretty much nailed the idea. It's dead. He's not coming back. Now, the real question is, does he make it through the rest of the season? So as a Badgers fan, what do I want them to do? Really, do I want them to fire Fickell right now? I wanted them to fire Fickell after the end of last year. I have been on the fire Fickell train all offseason. I saw how the team played. I did not think it was going to improve, and I was proven right. And not only did it not improve, it got incredibly worse. Incredibly worse. This team is so heartless and just not ready to play football. So are any of the guys on his coaching staff going to change that? I don't think so. I say we wait out Fickell to see if he wants to get bought out before he ruins his chances as the next coaching job. And maybe we can get that $25 million a little bit less, get it down a little bit, maybe get a little bit more money for the next coach that comes in. But all the boosters out there, Big Cat, everybody that, is a Badger backer, like right now is not the time to spend money on the Badgers. Send them a message that you're not going to spend money until they change this, because this program is now at the lowest point it's been maybe in the history of the program. I know that seems crazy. I've only been alive for 45 years, and they were bad for a long time, but again, they were expected to be bad. This Badgers team was not expected to be bad under Luke Fickell. They were expected to compete at a high level, and they are now at the lowest level they have been in an incredibly long time. So it's time for Fickell to go. Whether it's right now or whether it's at the end of the season, I don't know how much that matters. But I do know that whoever the Badgers hire next has to change the identity and bring heart back to this program, because it's dead now. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like and subscribe. We've got lots of content. We're going to do more Badgers stuff. Obviously, we love to do the NFL, but we've got more Badger stuff coming. Dave will be on next time. He'll talk about his trip to Madison, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Go Pack Go. And I hope the Badgers get a heart back. Thanks again.